There is a kind of gratitude that is manufactured, the kind we reach for when we think we should feel grateful, when the circumstances seem to call for it, and we try, with some effort, to produce the feeling. And then there is another kind, the kind that arrives uninvited in the middle of an ordinary moment and fills something in you so completely that there is no room left for anything else. Not something you built, something that happened to you. A recognition, sudden and total, that what is already here is more than enough. That the world, as it actually is extraordinary, and that you are alive in it, right now. And that is everything. John Denver was, by the mid-1970s, one of the most successful musicians in America. The albums had sold tens of millions of copies. The songs, Rocky Mountain High, Take Me Home, Country Roads, Sunshine on My Shoulders, had become part of the fabric of American life in the particular way that only a handful of songs achieve, where they are no longer just music, but something closer to a shared memory. He performed at sold-out arenas. He appeared on television specials watched by millions. He received humanitarian awards for his environmental advocacy. The public life was, by any measure, full. And he kept leaving it. He kept going back. To the mountains. To the Colorado high country that had given him something he could not find anywhere else. He talked about this often. Not as a retreat from the work. He loved the work, loved the making of music and the offering of it, and was genuinely invested in the life it had produced. But as a return to something more fundamental than the work could provide. Something about the scale of the natural world, the specific quality of standing in a place where the mountains extend above you in all directions, and the sky is so wide and so clear and so completely indifferent to your concerns. That did something particular to the ordinary anxiety of a busy professional life. It reset something. It returned him to a proportion that the arenas and the recording studios and the professional obligations could distort, a proportion in which he was a person, one person, in a very large and very old and very beautiful world. And from that proportion, something arrived, a feeling that he described differently in different interviews, but that always had the same quality at its center. Gratitude. The simple, overflowing, not manufactured kind. He wrote Rocky Mountain High after spending the summer of 1971 in the Colorado Rockies. The song came from a specific experience, lying in a meadow at night, watching the Perseid meteor shower, with a quality of feeling that he said he could not fully describe in words, but that the music had come closer to containing. It was not a complicated feeling. He said that repeatedly. It was not complex or ambiguous or hard to access. It was simply being there, being present in that specific place, in that specific night, in the middle of something so immense and so beautiful, and feeling with complete certainty that being alive was enough. That being alive in this world was an extraordinary privilege, and that he was grateful for it in a way that went past words and had to become music. The gratitude in his music was, for audiences, one of the most recognizable things about it. Not a manufactured sentiment, not a professional optimism designed for commercial appeal, something genuinely felt, a joy in the specific things he named, a warmth for the specific places and people and moments, a quality of genuine delight in the ordinary that communicated itself through the music in a way that listeners responded to immediately. Because they recognized it. Because they had felt versions of it themselves in their own equivalent places, their own equivalent moments. The times when the ordinary world had suddenly seemed not ordinary at all, but extraordinary. And his music gave that feeling a form and a home and a way of being remembered. Maybe you've had moments like that. Not in the mountains, necessarily. Not in the dramatic landscapes. But in some specific, ordinary moment when the feeling arrived without being summoned. When something in the world around you, the quality of the light, the sound of a familiar voice, the smell of something that carries memory in it, reached you in the place that is hard to reach. And, for a moment, everything was enough. More than enough. Simply, overwhelmingly enough. That is the gratitude worth paying attention to. Not the gratitude you build by trying to be grateful. The gratitude that finds you when you are genuinely present. When the management of life is set aside for a moment, and what is actually here, the world, the light, the person across from you, the sound of the ordinary, is allowed to be what it is. Which is, if you look at it honestly, extraordinary. More than you required, more than you asked for. Here, in the middle of an ordinary day, in exactly the form it takes. Available. If you are present enough to notice. John Denver spent much of his life trying to be present enough to notice. Not through discipline exactly, more through return. The repeated, deliberate, unchoreographed practice of going back to the places and the moments that made presence natural. For him, that was the mountains. For you, it might be something else. A garden. A particular time of day. A walk you take in the same direction. A piece of music that has carried something important for a long time. The specific quality of an ordinary evening with specific people. Whatever it is that reliably returns you to the feeling, to the sense of proportion, to the recognition that what is here is already extraordinary, that is worth returning to. Not occasionally, regularly, as a practice of presence that makes gratitude not an achievement, but a finding. He also talked about the way that gratitude changed how he worked. Not by making the work less serious. He was deeply serious about the music, about the craft of it, about what it could do when it was done well. But by relieving the work of the burden of being the source of all meaning. The mountains, the gratitude they generated, the proportion they restored, meant that the music could be what it was. A gift, an offering, something made in response to the beauty of the world. Rather than a meaning machine. Rather than the place where significance was produced because it could not be found elsewhere. He already had the elsewhere. He had the mountains. He had the specific, particular, overflowing quality of being alive in a world this beautiful. And from that abundance, the music came easily, joyfully, without the straining that happens when work must carry more than work is built to carry. The songs that came from that abundance are the ones that have lasted, not because they were technically perfect, though many of them were remarkably well made, but because they were genuine, because the gratitude in them was real, because what he was thanking the world for when he wrote those songs was something he actually felt. And that realness, that genuine, unmanufactured quality of a person who actually meant what they were saying, is what listeners recognized, is what has kept the music in people's lives for decades, is what you feel, even now, in the specific quality of those songs. The gratitude traveled from the mountains into the music, into you, and it still resonates. What would you thank the world for if you were writing from your own equivalent of the mountains? What is the specific, ordinary, always here beauty of your own life that you have perhaps been too busy or too distracted or simply too habituated to notice fully? The people who are still here. The ordinary beauty of the days you are living. The specific pleasures, small, repeatable, always available, that you have perhaps begun to take for granted in the way that abundance sometimes invites. That is worth noticing again. Not by manufacturing the feeling, by simply pausing long enough for the feeling to arrive. So take a slow breath and let yourself look for a moment at what is actually here. Not what is missing, not what has been lost, not what you need or want or are working toward. Just what is here, right now, in this specific moment. In the ordinary, extraordinary fact of being alive in a world this beautiful. That is what John Denver found in the mountains. And it is not limited to mountains. It is available in every moment where presence is genuinely given. In every ordinary thing, looked at long enough with enough quiet, it is there. It was always there. It is there right now. And you are alive in it. And that is everything. One more thought. Something about the relationship between gratitude and what it does to the ordinary. When the gratitude is real, the ordinary is not ordinary anymore. It becomes specific. The light is not just light, it is this light, at this time, in this particular place where you are standing. The voice you are hearing is not just a voice, it is this voice, carrying the specific warmth of this person in this moment. The day is not just a day, it is this day, irreplaceable, never to occur again in exactly this form. Gratitude does this. It reinstates the specificity of things, their particularity, their realness. John Denver knew this. He felt it most reliably in the mountains, in places where the scale and the beauty made the specificity unavoidable. But he carried the capacity back with him into the ordinary days, into the studio sessions and the performances and the professional life. The gratitude traveled into the songs, into the performances, into the way he was with people, genuinely present, genuinely glad, genuinely there. All of it came from the same source, the capacity to notice what was actually here and to be moved by it. as moved as if you were encountering it for the first time, which, in a sense, you always are, because each moment is the first time for that moment, and the last, and there will not be another like it. That is worth noticing. That is always worth noticing.